Hi, welcome to Beauty of Light. I'm here today to talk about kind of the beginning processes of, philosophical thinking, meditative thinking, because meditative thinking has its beginnings in philosophy. Before you even move on to, more in depth or more contemplative thinking, and not contemplative, but more advanced thinking and knowledge, what you should do is contemplate on the basic knowledge you have already acquired. So the things that you already actively know, and I'm starting off like this because not everybody is a huge reader. Not everybody has the time to read. Some people have families, they work two jobs, you're in college or you're in school or whatever it is. And you could be the primary caregiver for a family member that is ill. It could be any reason why you don't really have the time to dedicate to a large amount of reading. And to be honest, it's not practical to read the large amount of books that you would have to read in order to kind of put everything together. Very few people are able to do that. The key to starting your meditative thinking process is to start off with your everyday stuff, what you actively already know, and contemplate on that. Contemplate, deep think on that. Ask a lot of questions to other people. One of the things I have always done is when I'm talking to someone of a different, even if someone of the same background, but often I like to ask people, what made them choose this path that they're on, if there's anything different they could have done, what would it have been, and just having general conversations, you get to know about people and a little bit about what are some of the things that lead up to someone making a decision about certain situations. And in that process of you doing that for other people, you can do that for yourself. And the reason why it's important to have conversation is to also listen, because one of the ancient ways of people gaining knowledge and wisdom was not only through experience, but it was through word of mouth. We have been taught for thousands and thousands of years through oral narration, right? So through just receiving knowledge and wisdom passed on throughout the centuries through word of mouth. So conversation, experience, and interaction with other people and with your own thoughts is one of the ways to begin the process of meditative thinking, thinking about some of the stories. And for instance, one of the things I like to refer back to because I know so much about it is in the Bible, and it's something that's easily accessible for a lot of people. So that's another reason why I use it sometimes. But in the Bible, all throughout the Bible, Jesus had used parables, stories, right? Stories for people to gain further understanding and knowledge. And all throughout the Old Testament, the story of the people, when you read the story of the people and all the things that they've gone through, it's people's lives and people's experiences give you knowledge if you actually think about it. And that's the reason why it's important to listen to the story of someone's story, the story of the people, whether it's a family member or a friend. Sometimes it's strangers, you can hear their stories. And A lot of times, too, sometimes it's better because if you can be in a grocery store and someone will stop you and start having a conversation. You could be waiting in line, and there's always sometimes messages even in those small moments that you're supposed to be received, because how random is it that someone decides to have a conversation with you or tell you something personal about them and you don't even know them. So um, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, is taking advantage of the people around you, and taking advantage of your own story and of your own knowledge of your own story. You can even go back to certain beliefs that you have. Think about the beliefs. Well, why do I feel that way? Why do I believe this? What led up to this? So you can think about, was it something that was taught by my parents? Was this an experience that I had in when I was in high school that had nothing to do with my parents, but this experience in high school kind of embedded this idea in me? You know, you have to, that's the contemplative thinking, that's the meditative thinking, when you wonder, where did this come from? Is this something that's valid? Is this something that's, still benefiting me? So, for instance, I'm going to give you an example with me. Like I said previously, I didn't grow up in any religious household. So when I had an experience with a Christian, which was the first experience I had with someone that was religious, what happened to be with the Christianity, with the Christian religion. And I remember being asked by an adult woman, this is when I was about 8 or 9. And I remember being asked by an adult woman if I believed in God. And I said, I don't know, because it wasn't exactly a conversation in my house. So I didn't know. I answered truthfully. And I remember her telling me at the time that I was going to go to hell for not like answering appropriately in her mind. And that stuck with me for years, of course, because it made me not even look into any religion, um, and I'm just saying any religion that was a current religion, because I had always been interested in reading books about ancient religions. From the time I was in elementary, I would get books about Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Roman mythology, and stuff like that. Easy accessible information for someone of my age, and but I never would really be open. I once I to high school, I would go to church if someone asked me to or something like that. But I had a blockage in my mind because of the idea of what a people. This is this religion. This is the kind of people that they create, judgmental people, or someone that could be very negative. But as I grew up as an adult, I realized that that was her. But in general, like, I had to think as an adult, I had to think back, okay, is it right for me to generalize this? I've been holding on to this idea that, everybody from this particular religion is very judgmental and unnecessarily aggressive, even towards someone that is as young as an elementary child. But once I realized that this was just a fear that I was holding on to from childhood to protect myself, then I realized that I could release that idea, release that fear, and release that stereotype that I have actually developed and was enforcing on my views on a whole entire group of people in the belief system. So, with that being said, that's like an example of how something, it may not even have anything to do with your background and how you grew up. It could just be one little event that happened to your life that could cause you to think a certain way for a long period of time without you even realizing it. And it could start off as a protection, a form of protection for yourself. So you can protect yourself from, the evils of the world. But in the end, now that you have matured, now that you have grown up, now that you are no longer in that situation, is this still a valid belief to hold on to? So that's like the start of like thinking as you're listening to other people's stories. And you have to listen to other people's stories. You have to open up your mind, whether it's listening to interviews of people in their experiences, reading biographies, autobiographies, talking to people off the street, with someone with a totally different background. A lot of times that's the way you can kind of break down the stereotypes that we develop, whether you even realize that you have this stereotype or not. Sometimes you don't even realize that you have developed a stereotype about a group of people until you are, do I want to have a conversation with this person? And you think automatically yay or nay, and nay because of an assumption that they may be aggressive, or assumption that they may not be interesting, or whatever assumption that you are applying to the situation because of stereotype that you have, a belief that you have attached and held on to for years. Like I said, whether it be from, childhood, something you grew up with, or an actual event. So it can be learned through family, or learned through an event that had taken place that, kind of traumatized you. So even for instance, when 9/11 happened, and it was easy to stigmatize, develop a stigma on a whole entire group of people, on what these people are, and how they treat people and everything like that, without even having without having any type of experience with them at all. And you know, I've people who had that about Muslim and the religion of Islam, and people treat Islam like it's an actual race too. So sometimes, people think Muslim, and they affiliate it with everything, even with people that are not of that region or not of that race, but just because they look that way. It's a whole nother stuff of stereotyping and ignorance. But anyway, I've had people tell me that they were afraid of black people or didn't like black people until they met me. So sometimes the lack of the experience allows for the growth of a belief, and the blooming of an ignorant belief or thought, aka a stereotype, right? So you have to check yourself. You have to think back, like how is this belief that I'm thinking, or this belief that my parents are thinking, even if you don't necessarily believe what you are hearing from them or for someone else, think about it. Why do they think that way? Is there any way that I'm reacting or I'm acting that's similar in that standpoint? Because you having your beliefs and your stereotypes will cocoon you and stop you from growing, because you have kind of shut down portions of your vision, portions of your sight, so you can't see. Now you have tunnel vision. So this is the reason why it's important to start off with meditative thinking about your beliefs, going back as into why they are correct, why the beliefs around you, people around you, and people that you come in contact with, why they're correct or not correct. How are you having similar beliefs that may be more subtle? Because a lot of times, a lot of times our beliefs, they don't arise, or we're not even aware of the issues that we have mentally about something until a situation pops up. So, and this is why you are never finished growing, because sometimes we don't even know all the issues that we have until the situation comes up for it to kind of blossom and show itself and rear its ugly head. So, kind of get a head start by thinking about it ahead of time, interacting with people around you, and then start interacting with people that you typically would not interact with, and learn more about them, learn about more about, and in that process, you learn more about yourself, because human nature is human nature. Doesn't matter what culture, what religious belief you have, or spiritual beliefs, you systems you have. Human nature is human nature, and it manifests itself in different ways. You just have to catch it in the different ways that it manifests itself, right? So that's just a little bit of knowledge on how to start your meditative thinking, your contemplative thinking. And once again, hit like and subscribe if you like the video. You can also follow me on Instagram under the name of Beauty of Lights. That's plural with an S. And once again, my name is Lena, and everyone have a meditative day.